Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Barclay at Columbia State Community College in Tennessee. Welcome, Coach.
Okay, glad to be here.
Glad to have you. You see Columbia State, and it's like, okay, could be South Carolina, could be who knows what, because I'll be driving through South Carolina tomorrow on my way to the Jefferson Cup. Don't know if I'll see you there this weekend doing any recruiting. But speaking of recruiting, as a junior college, you guys got to do twice as much as everybody else, refilling that roster. So, middle of March, what does your roster and recruiting look like right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the community college level, the recruitment piece is just such a massive element because, like you said, we're looking to bring back minimum half our roster, but we have a great year and some freshman girls get some opportunities to get to a program that would help them academically progress and all that kind of stuff. That could be more than half your team. So, it's certainly a huge piece of your labor and time in terms of recruitment.
So, I'm guessing you, as most junior college coaches I talk to, your class is never locked. You might be pulling in people, the second day of training if it works out the right way. But how at this time of year, generally, how does your class look? I mean, how many more players are you looking for? How many got locked in? What's that look like?
I think it changes year to year. I think there are some years where everything falls into place how you want it to. And I mean, I think 2 years ago, I signed 13 on signing day, November 1st. And so it's
Wow.
like, and then there's years where we sign two on November 1st. And so I think, again, it's like, I think it just year to year kind of just depends on how things progress with each individual and kid to kid basis. But hopefully you want in March to be pretty far along in terms of what your team is going to look like. And, you're always looking to add and see what else you can find and all that. But you're hoping to be pretty far along in March.
Well, in terms of the recruiting side, where do you like to go? What events do you like to be at? Where do you like to try to find players?
I think Tennessee is, foundational piece of our roster. We're not there are a lot of community colleges that have, 18, 19 internationals on their roster. That's not typically what you're going to find on the makeup of our roster. It's going to be, 80 to 90% Tennessee kids. And then we'll have, a handful of out of state kids and we'll have a few internationals, like two. But for the most part, we want to get the Tennessee kids. And I think we're fortunate, at Columbia State, we're in an area where there's incredible talent just in our backyard, so just within, 100 miles, there's a lot of really good clubs, a lot of really good players and coaches for us to kind of go through. So we're fortunate in that sense. But I would say there's not a whole boundary in terms of where we'll go. I mean, obviously, we're typically not going to like California and Vegas and stuff like that, but we'll get to like Indiana and Kentucky, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, maybe Virginia. Like I would say, like our region of the country, we have some kids, but we're predominantly Tennessee.
Okay. Now, do you guys run any ID camps, or do you your staff work external camps? Are they a part of your process?
Yeah, I typically try to, like my assistant coach will go and do a lot of work, a lot of camps at other schools, try to kind of fill up their summer with working camps. And we typically run one camp a year. And our camp, I don't really like the camp for me personally to have, 50, 60, 70 plus kids. We typically do a camp with where we really want like 30 kids. And hopefully at that point, we already know the majority of those kids that are coming. And we want to see them against, some maybe potentially some kids who've already committed to us to see what that they look like against kids that we already like, or just to kind of see how they mesh and how they get along. But we like to keep it around 30 tops, and we usually do it in October.
Okay. Well, whether it's at a camp or a showcase or wherever you're seeing players, what kind of makes up the hierarchy of things that you're looking for in a player, both on the field and off?
Yeah, I don't think I'm probably far off of what, most coaches are going to say. It's like, the character of the kids are incredibly important. As college coaches, we're going to spend more time with these kids than we are our own families. So we certainly want to surround ourselves with people who are like-minded. For me, it's like driven individuals, competitors, industrious players that are like to work hard, and all the things that are going to be skills that they can apply right away in college, because being a college athlete is difficult. It's not easy. So people who kind of have experience, I love when we get kids who work the job through high school, and it's like we know that they can time manage and all those types of things. I think it gives us into a little bit of a window of what they're going to look like when their plate is full.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Um, well, one of the things that, you know, comes up primarily, well, this day with the transfer portal, it comes up all the time now, but for those going through the junior college process, and you mentioned it, maybe even some freshman girls who have success and look to move on. Kind of talk to me about the success of your girls moving on to the next level for those that want it.
Yeah, I think this year was really exciting. We've got we had 11 sophomores, and seven wanted to go on to play after they were finished, and six of those players have already signed, and the seventh one is now fielding. I think she's got three offers, and she's going on a couple of visits in the next couple of weeks. But all seven of them will, have great programs, great situations for them, like academically, athletically. So, I think that's a huge piece of it as well. We talk about how labor intensive the recruitment is, but it's also not only are we recruiting them in, but we're recruiting them out too. So we want to work to find these kids great places to play for them when they're done.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the school. Maybe some folks out there not familiar with Columbia State. So, what have since you've been there, what have you found to be great about the school? What things stand out to you? Maybe some things we wouldn't even know by going through the website.
Yeah, I think, Columbia, Tennessee is a really great location for me, because I think from a recruitment purpose, we're an hour from downtown Nashville. So you have the access to get to NSC games or Titans games or, Predators games, and plenty of concerts. And, for our out of state internationals that want to see Nashville, because it's kind of it's a big place to be right now. A lot of people moving to Tennessee, I can assure you, but in the same sense, we're far enough away where like we're not dealing with like traffic and crime and stuff like that. And downtown Columbia is great. I think one of the things I would mention would be Mule Day, which happens in April. And it's like the whole downtown has a festival, event of things, and boutique stores and live music, and there's a huge parade, and tens of thousands of people come down for it. And one of the other really neat things about Columbia is at they have First Fridays. So the first Friday of every month, the downtown square, like all the stores put their stuff outside. There's food trucks and live music, and it really, you feel like you're in like a Hallmark Christmas movie, when you're downtown Columbia. So there's enough to do where you're not in the middle of nowhere, but you're also close enough to a big city where I think that helps as well.
Yeah, so sounds like a good spot to be. Uh, it one of the toughest challenges kids can have coming into college, though, is really figuring out how to balance the demands of the sport, demands of the school. What kind of support systems do you guys offer to help them be successful in both aspects?
Yeah, I think Columbia State does a great job of providing, resources for the students in terms of all the elements of being an adult. There's a lot of support with like tutoring and academic services, and even within our own staff, like one of my assistant coaches has an academic checkup meeting every 2 weeks with players to kind of, and it's not just an academic checkup, it's kind of like also a life checkup of how are things going, and where do you think you need a little help or a little support in. And so we want to try to give them all of the resources they need to be successful.
Okay. Well, let's walk back to October time frame, just heart of the season. What does a typical week look like for a player in terms of when are classes, practices, games, all that kind of thing?
Yep. So when we're on that regular cycle, we play 2 games a week. Typically, I schedule those games Thursday, Sunday. Minimizes a lot of missed class time. Majority of our kids don't have class on Fridays. Our home games, we kick off at 7 p.m. We've got a stadium with lights, so we're fortunate that we can play some evening games, which helps with attendance as well. I think we've got great attendance at our events, so I think that helps. So those are our two game days, and then typically, from a periodization standpoint, Monday is typically our day off, because we play every Sunday. Tuesday, is a little bit of a heavier workload for a training session. Wednesday's prep. Thursday game day, Friday recover, and film. Saturday prep, film, Sunday game. That's kind of what they look like. Most of the kids have classes between 9 to 12 or 12:30, something like that. And then we usually train 1 to 3 in the afternoon, or sometime around that. We change it kind of year to year based on what we need and what everyone's class schedule looks like. But I would say that's mainly what it looks like in terms of a week to week.
Okay. Well, as a parent, one of the big questions I always have is, all right, what's this going to cost me, right? So, junior college is famous for being more affordable, and depending on what division within junior college, may have more scholarship money even. So, kind of just talk to me, and I'm not holding you to hard numbers here, but
Yeah,
just give me
no.
some rough estimates here. What can a new student coming in expect from a cost standpoint? Maybe what's the room and board situation? What's the athletic scholarship situation, et cetera?
Yeah, Tennessee has what's called like Tennessee Promise, Tennessee Hope. So a lot of Tennessee kids can go to a community college for free, which is similar to what I had when I coached in Missouri for a community college. On the men's side, they had the A plus. So it was a very similar program where you could get kids in state where they're not even having to pay tuition, so it's free. And then from an hour rate perspective, I want to say, if you don't qualify for the Tennessee Promise or Tennessee Hope, I want to say it's like maybe 2,300 bucks a semester, something like that. So maybe around 5,000, a little less than 5,000 a year. So, but again, there's all sorts of scholarships to apply for, from opportunity scholarships to there's out of state scholarships that we have and waivers that we can put together. So we can put together packages for kids where it is, if the financial reasons for your college selection are a top priority, community college is certainly a great avenue to go.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the team. Is there a roster size that you are trying to hit each year that you find is ideal?
Gosh, I think the ideal roster size would be 28 for me personally, would be somewhere around 28. Um, Now, this year we had 24, so we're a little bit smaller than normal, and I think the year before we were 24. So I've been like right around that 24 number, but my ideal number would be 28.
Okay. And then besides roster players, what other folks are filling out that roster in terms of assistant coaches, maybe some folks in the athletic department that help out with that team? What's that look like?
Yeah, I've got two people that I would say are my assistant coaches. So I've got one whose role really is more on like operations, academic meetings, like study hall, really like life coach slash assistant coach. And then I've got another assistant coach that's a little bit more on the soccer side with me to help with working with goalkeeping, because goalkeeping is not my specialty. And he was a former college goalkeeper, so he has that as his background. And then he'll kind of help in all the other elements too. So I kind of feel like we divide and conquer.
Okay. Awesome. Well, what about you? Talk to us about your coaching style and just the style of play you guys are looking to play there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we want to play a controlling style. We want to play fast and physical and aggressive, and we want to play an entertaining, offensive style of soccer. I think this year we were top 10 in the country in attacking corners, shots on goal, goals. Like, we want to put people under pressure. We want to score a lot of goals. I think that's part of the fun. I think we're also in the top 10 for conceding the least amount of goals, given the number of games that we had. So we want to play good defensively. I think that's always a key piece. Like, everyone's like cliche of, defense wins championships, but, we love to attack. So I'm all about the goals. I love seeing the kids with their celebrations, enjoying the moment. I encourage them to celebrate and enjoy the goals because at some point in your life, scoring goals comes to an end. So, take advantage of enjoy while you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're in the spring. What does your non-traditional slash off season look like? What do you guys do this time of year?
Yeah, so in the spring, I think we put a lot of focus in like the individual. So a lot of our training in the spring is like more functional work, speed, agility, strength conditioning. It's less focused on the team tactical principles because like we talked about earlier in a recruitment, the team year to year is going to look really different in terms of how it's made up. So, how tactically how we are going to attack and defend, it could potentially change every year. So really we want to try to help the kids reach the best potential within them from an individual standpoint. So our focus is really on a lot more on functional work, speed, agility, strength, and conditioning. And we do a lot more morning trainings to give the girls a little bit more of like a afternoon off if they're they don't have it, or we can do some individual meetings or some individual work. That's kind of how we do it. And then of course we're allowed, now they've just changed it, I think it was four play dates and now it's 6 play dates. So we've got like this spring we're playing a couple of NCAA Division I teams. We're playing a couple of top 10 NAI schools. We try to utilize the spring to showcase. Both the sophomores. This year is unique because almost all of our sophomores are done. But hey, here's some freshmen to take a look at next year. If a coach likes them, it's like, here's our schedule. We live stream all of our games. Please, log in, take a look at the kids, and reach out to me. If there's somebody you like, and so we play those games to kind of help showcase the girls.
No, that's awesome. Well, you've given us a bunch of info, and I really appreciate it. Going to leave you with one last question, and that is if you had a piece of advice for any girl going through this process of college recruiting, what would that be?
Um, I think the word that comes to mind is be relentless. I think a lot of kids, um, they don't attack their own recruitment. And I think that's really an important piece of, you are got to get yourself recruited. Nobody's going to just show up on your doorstep and just happen to see, or that's less likely as opposed to you being the aggressor and you being relentless in finding the schools and the programs that you're interested in and contacting those coaches and sending your schedules and like kind of chase the coaches down a little bit. Like Jefferson Cup, it's like there's going to be hundreds of kids. So what's going to separate one kid from another is if there's a couple of kids who contacted me and sent me their schedule and indicated they're interested in us. It's like they're going to go to the top of the list. Like those are the games that I want to go see because I know they're interested in us. So I think be relentless in your pursuit of being recruited. And then the other piece of that is, you may not hear back from coaches, but just keep going, keep knocking on doors, keep sending emails, keep that contact going, because you're really your own advocate. So you've got to be the one kind of pursuing the schools to let them know that, hey, I really am interested in your program. I want to be a part of it. Like, I think that's just really, really big piece for it.
Well, as someone who helps the college recruiting process at my kids' club, I can say that's really good advice. So hope everybody heard that. Coach, really appreciate it. Wish you the best of luck as you wrap up the recruiting class, and hopefully next fall you keep on moving them ahead and maybe hang a banner, huh?
Yeah, it'd be great. And before we go, Matt, I just want to give you a huge kudos. Like what you're doing in these podcasts they're fabulous. Like you've done so many interviews with so many programs from across the country that at all levels, like what a great way to share information for not only just about schools, but about the college soccer landscape and scheme and all of it I'm a huge fan of anyone that's doing everything they can to educate and share. And so definitely I think it's fantastic what you're doing. I've been listening to your podcasts and I watch them, and I love what you're doing, so please keep doing what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate it. As long as I can get people to keep signing up to jump on with me, we'll keep at it. I think you're going to be at program number 324. So we'll just keep on going, and hopefully coaches keep signing up, and we'll keep putting them out.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. Well, thanks, Coach. Best of luck.
Thanks, Matt.